Because any application you develop in AWS is likely to integrate with multiple AWS logging services, this video is going to cover native AWS security logging capabilities. Each AWS service provides operational metrics or log files to provide insight into how the service is operating. Additionally, many AWS services generate security log data, including audit logs for access, configuration changes, and billing events. When working with log files in any environment, there are a few best practices that apply. First, you should enable audit and access logging capabilities wherever available. Next, you should use secure, durable storage for log files to ensure log files are not accidentally lost, stolen, or tampered with. You should also create and implement log lifecycle policies for storing, aggregating, analyzing, archiving, and deleting log data. Additionally, you should use meaningful names to organize log data when consolidating logs into a single location. And finally, you should analyze logs, create actionable reports, and configure appropriate alerting to get the most out of log data. There are a few different AWS services that I'd like to touch on very quickly, and the first is CloudTrail. AWS CloudTrail provides a history of AWS API calls for an account and facilitates security analysis, resource change tracking, and compliance auditing of an AWS environment. CloudTrail is an essential service for understanding AWS use and should be enabled in every AWS region for all AWS accounts regardless of where services are deployed. CloudTrail delivers log files to a designated Amazon S3 bucket approximately every 5 minutes. CloudTrail can be configured to send a message via SNS when new logs are delivered and integrates with CloudWatch logs and AWS Lambda for processing. Next is AWS Config. AWS Config creates an AWS resource inventory including configuration history, configuration change notification, and relationships between AWS resources. AWS Config provides a timeline of resource configuration changes for specific services. If multiple changes are made within a short period of time, only the cumulative result of these changes will be recorded. Change snapshots are stored in a specified Amazon S3 bucket and can be configured to send Amazon SNS notifications when AWS resource changes are detected. You should enable AWS Config if you want to track changes to resource configuration, answer questions about resource configurations, or demonstrate compliance either at a specific point in time or over a period of time. When processing configuration change notifications, you should use AWS Lambda or AWS SQS with workers to process, filter, and consolidate change notifications and alerting. Amazon S3 also has access logging, which records individual requests made to Amazon S3 buckets and can be useful for analyzing traffic patterns, troubleshooting, and security and access auditing. It can also help a company learn about its customer base, set lifecycle policies, define access policies, and understand Amazon S3 charges. Amazon S3 access logs are delivered to a designated target S3 bucket on a best effort basis. Let's take a moment to go over how to enable S3 access logging. For any bucket that you want to enable logging, just click on the bucket, go to Properties, and then click on Server Access Logging. Once you enable logging, it'll ask you to choose a target bucket to put your logs in, and then a prefix. And that's all there is to it. You also have access to Elastic Load Balancing access logs. Elastic Load Balancing access logging records individual requests made to your load balancer and can be useful for analyzing traffic patterns, troubleshooting, and security and access logging. These logs also provide request processing durations which can be used to improve user experiences, discover user-facing load balancer-generated errors, and debug communications between load balancers and back-end web servers. Elastic Load Balancing access logs are delivered to a designated target S3 bucket at a user-requested 5 or 60-minute interval. Let's walk through how to enable an access log for one of our load balancers. So we'll go to the EC2 dashboard, find our load balancers on the left, and then for the load balancer that we want to enable access logging, we'll enable the load balancer. Under Description, we'll scroll down to Attributes, click on Edit Attributes, and Enable Access Logs. And when you enable this, it's going to ask you for a bucket and a prefix. Simply enter a bucket and a prefix, and your access logs are enabled. Similarly to Elastic Load Balancing access logs, you also have the ability to configure CloudFront, Redshift, and RDS logs. Another type of log I'd like to talk about, though, are the Amazon VPC flow logs, which you can get to by going to the VPC dashboard, finding your VPC, and then clicking on Flow Logs. Amazon VPC Flow Logs captures information about the IP traffic going to and from Amazon VPC network interfaces and can be applied at the VPC, subnet, or individual Elastic Network interface level. Flow log data is stored using Amazon CloudWatch logs and can be exported using Amazon CloudWatch streams for additional analytics or visualization of network traffic flows. You should enable Amazon VPC flow logs for debugging or when organizational legal or security policies require capturing network flow data. And finally, there are centralized log management options. AWS offers several different options for centrally managing log data. The majority of AWS audit and access log data is delivered to user-specified S3 buckets. Consider consolidating S3-based logs into a single, secured bucket with meaningful prefix names to make it easier to organize, consolidate, and manage access to log files across AWS services and accounts for processing and analysis. Amazon CloudWatch Logs provides a centralized service for storing and aggregating log data with rudimentary alerting through CloudWatch alerts. AWS Partner Network members offer feature-rich log management solutions that integrate directly with many or all of these audit log capabilities. So if you're curious, I highly recommend you do some research for AWS Partner Network member provided solutions. And that'll wrap it up for native AWS security logging capabilities. So if all of that made sense, then feel free to move on.